Hello and welcome to Maui, Manao. I'm your host, Alan Texeira. And today we'll be discussing Maui issues with our Maui state senators, Senator J. Kalani English, representing Hana East and Upcountry Maui, Moloka'i, Lanai, and Ko'olave. We have Senator Rosalind Baker, representing South and West Maui, Kapalua, Ka'anapali, Lahaina, Ma'alea, Kihei, Wailea, and Makena, and Senator Shan Tsutsui, representing Wailuku, Waihe'e, Kahului, Paia, and Lower Paia. Welcome, Senators, and thank you for being with us today. First off, we're hoping we could begin with a brief recap of last year's session. Please discuss what you feel was significant legislation that has become law.
Go ahead.
Good question.
The last session was a very stressful session for all of us. And I think the main theme for the Maui delegation was to maintain what we had in the budget and then to ensure that things we have put in the past gets released and gets put into progress. So from my perspective as chair of Transportation, Intergovernmental and International Affairs Committee, the previous bills we passed to create the harbors modernization and then to create the airports modernization became very important so that, because that puts a lot of money into the economy and it builds our infrastructure and keeps a lot of people working. So for me, that was really important, and we tried to get the highways modernization bill passed last session. But in the hard economic times, it's just quite too difficult right now.
You know, one of the big issues nationwide as well as here in our state has to do with health care. So one of the bills that we passed, which was very important, was to continue the effort to give autonomy and local control to our hospitals that are part of the Hawaii Health Systems Corporation. How quick we forget what the initials stand for. But it was very important for Maui because it allows them to control their own destiny in many ways, determining how their money is spent, what facilities need to be improved and go forward, while at the same time being able to access state and federal funds to assist them, particularly state funds for capital improvement projects.
And of course, this year was the beginning of our new biennium year, which required us by the Constitution to pass a state budget covering over 2 years. So House Bill 200, as we talked about, was a very critical component and piece in all of the legislation that we passed. There are a lot of challenges that we had to face. We looked at budget cuts in every single department. But on the other side, we also looked at trying to increase the amount of capital improvement projects that were allocated throughout the state. So, that was obviously a major piece of legislation. In addition, we also passed a measure that would allow us to encumber the ARA money, the federal stimulus dollars, and so that became Act 150, which would authorize the governor to expend those funds as well as provide a creation of a task force by legislative members to make sure that there's some oversight and that those funds are being spent properly.
Yeah, there were really hundreds of millions of dollars in the budget for important road projects like Pi'ilani widening and realignment in my district, as well as upcountry water and harbor and airport improvements.
Interesting, thank you. Our next question is touching on basically the same thing. The state of Hawaii is currently facing challenging economic times. Could you happen to fill us in on the current forecasts projected for the state?
Well, Ellen, unless you were either out of state for a long time or sleeping or even under a rock for the last 12 or 24 months, you'd know that the state of Hawaii as well as our country are facing tough economic challenges. And just 2 weeks ago, the Council on Revenues came out with an additional forecast of state revenues, and their estimation is that the state will be short an additional $90 million. So what that brings our 2-year total to is roughly around $878 million. And so that's the type of shortfall that we're looking at from the state perspective. And those obviously, those are big numbers and create very challenging times. And people feel it in their personal checkbooks. Businesses are feeling it at the registers. And so, we're committed to making sure that we help and do everything possible to try to at least get our economy back on the right track sooner than later. And one of the things that, again, to touch upon is the federal stimulus dollars that are before us. Earlier this year, Congress passed a package that included $787 billion for the entire country, of which $1.4 billion was earmarked to Hawaii. And there are many programs, there are energy initiatives, there are education programs that are going to be receiving those funds, as well as many CIP capital improvement projects for roads and highways and harbors. And so we're starting to see some of those funds finally hit the ground, and we're starting to see those projects finally moving. And last week at a hearing at the state capitol, Senator Inoue had members of the legislature, had the governor, as well as department heads give an update as to where we were in terms of our utilization of the federal dollars. And so the governor did mention that, of the $1.4 billion, Hawaii is in receipt of half of that, of which a third was actually moving. So, roughly a sixth of the $1.4 billion has been encumbered, and so those projects are moving. So there is quite a bit more to go, and I think we'll start to see a lot of those projects moving towards the latter part of this year in 2009.
Because some of those funds were designed to help make sure that we don't lay off teachers, to make sure that we have improvements in things like health IT. And there's also some county projects. The Market Street improvements are one of the big projects that are going to be funded by stimulus funds, as well as making sure that we have the latest in technology for clearing baggage at the airport, and that'll put all of that equipment in the back of the house, so to speak, and make our lobby look a lot more attractive for our visitors. So, one of the goals I think that we've had as a Maui delegation is try to make sure that we get as much federal funds in as we can, as well as taking a look at making sure that they get spent and urging the administration to go after other kinds of grants, because some of it is categorical. It's the things that every state is going to get, but there are also opportunities, and so groups like MEDB and our hospitals and federally qualified health centers like the Hana Health and Maui Community Health can also bring in additional dollars to help make sure that there's money circulating in our economy.
And for the CIP projects from the federal stimulus, the Department of Transportation has done an excellent job of making sure our projects are on the list, making sure all the paperwork is in, and then we also have a backup list, because the anticipation is that other states will not meet the requirements, will not get their list in. So we have a backup list ready to go. At a certain point, that money becomes available to the other states, and so I really have to commend the DOT for really staying on it. And part of that is a collaborative effort, because our Senate and the House committees have had a lot of interaction with them to make sure that our projects are all in line.
Sounds like he's been pretty proactive on this.
Very, very proactive.
Can I ask one more question moving on? Sorry. What steps has the legislature taken to assist with the budget shortfalls?
Well, we've done some internal streamlining of our own operations. We passed a bill that cuts our own salary by 5%, and we're also unfortunately freezing the salary of all of our employees. And next session, when we convene again for the 2010 session, we will not have as many staff as we've had. So we're economizing. We're also, we've embarked on a project over the last several years to reduce the amount of paper that we use, and it's been very successful. So we're doing our bit to try to help hold expenses down and hold the line here.